Okay, welcome. If you're new to this channel, it's your boy Jay. This is the Digital Revolution podcast, and we're just going to give you some latest news, things that's happening in the news, things that's happening in the financial markets, and just the overall sentiment. Um, man, wow, what is today? This is the end of the day. This is April 3rd, 2023, and it's just been I don't know how everybody is doing out there, but feel free to, like and subscribe and add your comments in the comment section. I would really like to hear what everybody is going through. Um, I just look around and I do live in New York City, and I'm getting very concerned about living here in the city. I've been hearing for a while now, since the pandemic happened, get out of New York City, get out of New York City. There's actually a book. I don't have time to rush and get it, but maybe we can look at this book. Maybe I can find it actually. Let me just see real quick if I can find it. There is a book. Just give me one moment to pull it up. Yeah, here it is. Here is a book that is really, really good and terrifying. Let me see if I can share my screen with you guys. Just bear with me. Again, this is your boy Jay. This is the Digital Revolution podcast, and this is episode 6. And we're gonna get into some news, into some views, into some really heavy, heavy, heavy shit. And I just have to make sort of a disclaimer that some of the topics that we deal with are super, super heavy. Um, so just beware, um, there is a lot of fear and a lot of doom and a lot of things going out there, and a lot of us want to kind of escape from that reality. But I think that if we kind of deal with that reality, um, that we can, I guess, deal with it. My birth sign, I'm a Scorpio, so I deal in the weird and the freakiness and deal with the absurd, if you will. And but we are living in some very, very strange times. And let me see if I can share my screen with you guys. But yeah, so I was talking about this guy, Joel Skolson, and he has a book called Strategic Relocation North American Guide, and they have updated it. You can get it on Amazon. Um, this is the third edition. I think they have a fourth edition. Uh, yeah, so I mean, this book in a nutshell, he's basically saying, okay, let me just read some of it here. Okay, again, this is the Digital Revolution podcast. It's your boy Jay. Hopefully, you guys are following what I'm saying here, and please like and subscribe. But I was just talking about before we get into some of the news that's out there. I was just talking about how everything is very, very heavy. Um, if it's not one thing, it's another thing. We're dealing with mass shootings. We're dealing probably some of you guys have known loved ones that have died from this pervasive sickness or have died from, being how do you say the jab injured or whatever. And this is real, like the default setting is to escape from reality because the reality is just so heavy to deal with. And I think that a lot of Americans feel as though that their back is being pressed against the wall. I mean, for one, a lot of people are losing their jobs. We're going to get to that jobs in a minute because actually, let's just jump right into it before we go into Joel Skolson. Well, you know what? Let me just get right into Joel Skolson before we get into. So anyway, so Joel Skolson wrote this book. I read it, and it is, guys, it is amazing. And that's the price of it, $198. Damn. I think the price just went up. I mean, this book is a wealth of information. And let me just say, basically, in a nutshell, what he's saying in this book is that the greatest threat that the United States has would be a war with Russia and China. And as we go more into the destabilization and the collapse of our society, we would find that people would start to strategically relocate. And so he is a political activist, a political scientist by nature. And Joel Skolson, he's been on the Alex Jones show. He's been on other, podcasts, talking about the strategic relocation and that once we go into this collapse, that people will start to strategically relocate in the United States. And so he actually builds homes for wealthy and high net worth individuals and builds bomb or what you call bomb shelters or bunkers for high net worth individuals. And so basically, in a nutshell, what he's saying in his book is that we're going to have some serious issues with Russia and China and possibly a nuclear war. And where do you go for strategic relocation. And as we go more into the collapse, that we would find that people would start to move, they would start to depopulate out of highly populated areas such as the tri-state area, and that slowly but surely we are finding the strategic relocation. Now, a lot of people, you don't have it here on this map. Okay, well, here it is. You might find that a lot of rich people are starting to move to Uruguay. They're starting to relocate to Uruguay. But I think that if you are anything but European, and that's not to say anything bad about European, but if you are white or Caucasian or European, he does say in the book, Joe Skolson, he's a white man. And it's no offense to any white person. I'm not judging them. My grandmother's white, but he does say in his book that, you know, if white people do move there, European people do move there, that those indigenous people may not welcome those people there as they try to strategically get out of the United States, because something could happen in the G7 nations where essentially once the collapse happens and you won't be able to get your money out of the bank, or there'll be something to the effect where you'll have to use, you know, a Q code or QR code to go into the grocery store, and that there'll only be a few grocery stores left and you'll have to use a QR code to get in. And again, there goes that consolidation of power. But in his book, he does say that certain people would be moving to South America, but that certain people would not be welcome there, would not be able to quote unquote blend in. And that's not saying anything bad about anybody. I love all races and all people. All races and all people are welcome here. And as I say, if you don't like somebody or you hate somebody, certainly they will end up in your family. I think Chris Rock said that joke. You know, um, we have to have a humor in this time, because these are really these are perilous times, and some people believe that we're living in the time of the tribulation period, and that we'll be going through a 10-year tribulation period. And not only is biblical prophecy lining up, but also the cycles are lining up with the biblical prophecy. Now, there's no way to know exactly 100% sure, because we will not know the time or the hour, but you know, I guess there will be writings on the wall. But let's just hear, despite the ongoing illusions of peace and prosperity, our world is getting less stable, not more. The economic foundations of the US and the world are all based on fiat money and are crumbling. You know, earthquakes, hurricanes, war, and terrorism are ever-present threats, and the secondary effects of social unrest in large metropolitan areas will be disruptive and dangerous if there is a shortage of essential commodities that cause people to panic. When you relocate or retire, your prime concern should be long-term security, not recreation. Sometimes you can have both. This book is designed to help you relocate around serious threats and develop contingency plans when you cannot relocate due to work or families. Strategic relocation is more than just pointing out safe areas. Simply because the safer the area, the harder it is generally to make a living and have access to the conveniences of life. For these reasons, relocation decisions are fairly complex, and Mr. Skolson walks you through all of the difficult choices and compromises that are inevitable in finding safety without being totally isolated. This book has answers for nearly every situation. And mind you, guys, this book, Strategic Relocation, is the fourth edition. Here they have the third edition for some reason. I actually have the fourth edition, and it has all the updates for the pervasive sickness and everything that's going on. It's very interesting. Maybe I don't agree 100% with everything he's saying, but I definitely agree with majority of what he is saying. Again, this is your boy Jay. This is the digital. Uh, what is this? So sorry. It's a long day. This is the Digital Revolution podcast. It's your boy Jay. This has been a long day. And before I get into the news, I just wanted to make some comments on the state of the society that we're living in. It's if you just I just went out to have a little bit of a meal, and let me stop sharing. I just went out to have a little bit of a meal, and I'm just walking around looking at the faces and seeing who's smiling, who has a smile on their face. And the majority of people are not smiling. The majority of people are not smiling, and it is as if we live inside the matrix. And again, just a very few people are controlling everything at the top, and it all gets trickled down to the bottom. But if just a core group of people are controlling everything at the top, and it's their world that we live in, it's their matrix that we're living in. They are designing the world in the way that they see fit. And as a result, the rest of humanity is just miserable. Those core people at the top, and they are particularly in the banking sector. For instance, like the Bank of International Settlements, the central banks, the Rothschild, and all the government agencies that are associated with that. This is just a core group of people that are putting all these laws and legislating all these rules and mandates and essentially stealing the wealth of those nations. Wherever there's a central bank, which there's one nearly all over the world. There's even a central bank in Russia, from my understanding. When I took my real estate class, my professor, he worked for Deutsche Bank, and he said, well, he informed us that there's basically a central bank in all the countries, and all the central banks are tied in. However, some of the central banks, let me just go to however, some of the central banks don't agree on everything. There is one bank really to rule them all. There's really one corporation that rules the whole entire world. But at the moment, some of the central banks in Russia are just not fucking with the G7 because of the draconian policies, the antiquated policies, the counterproductive policies to life in general. Again, it's a core group of people that are essentially sucking the wealth out of all these nations, impoverishing all these nations, and essentially putting them into debt slavery. So again, this is your boy Jay. This is the Digital Revolution podcast. Hopefully you're tuning in. Please like and subscribe to this. Seems as though I'm getting better at my communication skills here. Guys, this is not easy. I'm going to take a little sip. Might need a cocktail after this. And I have to warn you guys that some of the things we deal here on this podcast are fucking deep. And you may not sleep at night. You may have bad dreams. But like Mike Maloney said, if you're not angry, then you're just asleep in the matrix. And at this very moment, it seems as though the matrix and the powers that be is coming undone, guys. It's coming undone. And so that brings us to the topic of this layoffs here. Again, I don't necessarily fuck with Fox News, so we're not necessarily reporting on Fox News, but there were several reports that McDonald's was laying off workers. So here we have McDonald's temporarily shuts U.S. offices, prepares layoff notices report. God damn, guys. They laying off McDonald's workers. I also heard that they're gonna slowly raise the price on their food. Again, not that the food is any good. I actually, full disclosure, I actually eat McDonald's, but it isn't good. It's not that good, but it is cheap. And sometimes it does, hit the spot. But this is, you don't want to eat McDonald's every day, every day, every day, every day. But some people almost don't have a choice, when they go to work, whether they want to buy Chick-fil-A, or you're going to buy McDonald's, it's almost like a $5 difference. Chick-fil-A, you can almost spend like $15, and McDonald's on a decent meal, you can spend about $8. So, but yeah, McDonald's temporarily shuts U.S. offices, prepares layoffs reports. According to the report, McDonald's Corp layoffs come as the company restructures, because yeah, the average consumer since the 1970s, their wages have been stagnating because essentially you have that core group of people at the top that are sucking all the wealth, making income inequality and gaps in income, and the middle class is falling further and further and further. Their standard of living is falling further and further. So as we have inflation, as the feds print more money, right? As the Federal Reserve prints more money, right? Let's just say these are like Fed notes as they print more money. And we're going to get into this because we have a little clip from Mike Maloney that's going to explain a little bit more better than I can. One of the economics greats. Again, I'm not an economist. This is not financial advice, but again, it's pretty obvious when you really think about it. As we have these disparities in wealth and inequality and stagnant wages, like the wages is stagnant here. And think about it, guys. In the U.S., what do we really make? We have financial services, Wall Street. But as you see, that's under a threat. We have Silicon Valley. Yeah, we make the software and we import the hardware and we import that into other countries. But United States' biggest what we export is entertainment, our celebrities. So you think about the Kim Kardashians, you think about the Kanye Wests, you think about, our entertainment is really what we're creating and making. Instead of people being doctors and lawyers and contributing to the society, most of these jobs, they are like they say, they had just they're zombie companies and zombie jobs. Like a lot of these jobs, they don't make anything. You know, there a lot of these jobs are scams. Are scams. We really don't make anything. 70% of our industrialization is over there in China, and right now we're having issues with China. So yeah, McDonald's is temporarily closing its U.S. offices this week as it prepares to inform corporate employees about layoffs undertaken by the fast food giant as part of a broader company restructuring, the Wall Street Journal reported. This is coming from the Wall Street Journal because, again, the average consumer cannot handle increasing consumer prices. So the average worker at McDonald's, they're asking, hey, we need more wage, we need more income because we can't keep up with the high cost of living. So therefore, they have to slowly raise their prices. However, the average consumer cannot handle those consumer prices. So you're going to see that less and less people are going to be buying fast food restaurants or eating out or using their discretionary income. McDonald's said in an internal email last week to U.S. employees and some international staff that they should work from home. Wow, work from home from Monday through Wednesday so it can deliver staffing decisions virtually, the report said. God damn. During the week of April 3rd, we will communicate key decisions related to roles and staffing levels across the organization, the company said in the message viewed by the Wall Street Journal. During the week of April, okay, so we said that already. Yeah, so the CEO warned employees that difficult decisions and decisions are on the horizon. Made the revelation. So the CEO made the revelation in a message to global employees announcing the company's updated business strategy, accelerating the Arches 2.0, which includes a reshuffling and possibly cutting positions as a way for the company to become more efficient and innovative. So yeah, they're going to trim the fat. Guys, this is not good. Again, a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with in this podcast is not just economics, but we also deal with economics and politics, but we also deal in exopolitical. And sometimes in order to understand the other the other things on the bottom of the ring, you need to understand the exopolitical. So that's like higher things. That's like incorporating a synergistic way of looking at everything. It's incorporating everything: philosophy, politics, socioeconomics, geopolitical, in order to understand the whole entire picture. And this is essentially why I have the globe there in the back, because we want a bird's eye view to make better informed decisions. And again, it's your boy Jay. This is the Digital Revolution podcast, and hopefully you guys are bearing with me. And we're just going over that. We're just going over that McDonald's is going to be laying off a ton of people here. Um, Stock market is wow. So yeah, on the hour, it's way above. It looked like since this bottom here, if you guys can see this, I don't know if you guys can see this here, but since this bottom here, the stock market has gained 8%. So, you know, if you were in the stock market and you were playing these markets, I don't know if you're doing it, day trading, if you're swing trading, if you were in these markets, you did make 8% increase. That's not 8% from there, but usually the traders would start taking profits from this breakout here. So that was a 3% increase on your money. But again, like I said in the last podcast, a lot of these markets are the prices that you see here are actually derivatives, they're derivations, and they are somehow being controlled. It's very confusing because if the dollars are going to zero and the dollars are 3 cents to the dollar, then what are these prices really? Once you cash out your dollars and they're worth nothing, then what are you cashing them out on? So the stock market is just all based off of smoke and mirrors. Yeah, the dollar might be here for another year or two, but as you see, and as we've been covering in this podcast, that the BRICS and those other nations have been de-dollarizing. They want to get out of dollars. So what makes you think that this stock market, what is it? If the dollar is there's no value left in the dollar, then all these markets is just smoke and mirrors. Here, let's go here. Really, I do follow the markets. I do swing trade, but full disclosure, I'm not in any of these markets. When Charles Naylor told us to get out of the markets, we got out of the markets, and hopefully I can maybe pull up a little something from Charles Naylor before we go deeper into our podcast. Again, this is your boy Jay. This is Digital Revolution podcast, and the revolution will not be televised. The revolution is happening, guys. It's happening, whether you like it or not. And again, today I was just out and about, and it was just like people are just not happy. People are not happy. They're just miserable. And Hold on one second. Let's just mute my. Okay, so it looks like overall that the S&P 500 is being propped up on the lower time frames. This does look like a let me see if I go here. Let's see. Let's take some of these indicators off. Let's take this hopefully you guys follow me. Let's take the stochastics off and let us put on another indicator. Let's put on accurate swing trading and let's see what the accurate swing trading is telling us. This is a buy. I don't necessarily this is not financial advice. Do not you never with finance, you never want to listen to any kind of guru. You always have to do your own due diligence, guys. You have to do your own due diligence. Never go by what, that guy. What's that guy? Me, Kevin. Never go by what he says. Never go by what I say. I may say like this or that or whatever, but always do your own research. Always do your own research. Never go for, this is your own money, your hard-earned money that you're working for. And yes, it is being debased. It is being decreased, but it looks like here it's a buy. If we go into the higher time frames, a buy. Again, another buy, but it looks like long term that we might see a little bit of a consolidation here in the 4-hour chart, because once we go in the lower time frames here and you see here that we have a thickness of the Kumo, so that is being supported. The price is being supported. So yeah, the market is going up. It looks like once it reaches this price range here, what is this? 4,194.97, that we might have a level of resistance, because here in the past it made a little peak right there, as you see here. So we may find a little resistance there. So I think we're going to be watching for these markets to see if it breaks past this level here and if it holds support there. But yeah, they're making money hand over fist. But again, you may be. I think what is happening too is that those investors, they're investing into the stock market and their money is going up and up and up and up. But at least the day traders are making money. Excuse me. I'm not sick. I'm not sick. I just have been talking all day. Yeah, but anyways, the day traders have been making money in this market. And but I think the day traders, what they're doing is they're making money, they're making their profits, they're taking their profits out of the market, and they're buying gold and silver, guys, or they're buying hard assets, they're buying tangible assets. They're making they're doing their pump and dumps, they're pumping up the market. This market is all day traders and the Fed, guys. If you're a long-term investor, if you're a buy and hold investor, most likely you have lost a lot of money. Now you might see that your 401k or your IRA went up a little bit, but you did. I think they said that the average Roth IRA or 401k lost about 23%. So you are losing money, but I think that a lot of people are looking in their accounts and seeing that their accounts are going up, and that might create a little bit of a false sense of reality, because again, this is not financial advice, but we see here that the markets are being propped up by day traders and the Fed. The Fed is allowed to day trade this market as well, which is which is insane. That's just completely insane. So yeah, we went over McDonald's and how McDonald's is laying off and making some cuts, and that should be a huge indicator. To me, this is an indication of the economy is weak, the average consumer is weak, small businesses are fucking up. Excuse my language, but you know that I have a potty mouth on this channel. I don't smoke, but I drink a little bit, so cut me some slack, yeah. But yeah, I have a potty mouth, so guys, forgive me, but I'm gonna go in. Um, let's see what we have here before we go to Mike Maloney. Oh, let's look at Tesla. Why is Tesla acting up? Oof. Now, I don't necessarily subscribe to this accurate swing trading system. I don't, because you really think the market is going to make it that easy? You really think it's that easy when you have some of the biggest hedge funds and you got the biggest central banks and you have the best day traders and traders in the world trading this market? You think it's that easy to just follow a buy and sell signal? No. Yeah, you can use it as an indicator, but I really don't use that. I just read the chart in general here, and I start with the higher time frames and kind of pull back on here. And you see here that Tesla went down quite a bit. I mean, we had a 75% drop, and we just had a little bit of bump here, but it's looking like it's just down, 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 and the momentum is to the downside. Right now, in the day, on the day, we have this kind of thick kumu here, so it's holding support, but we have a lagging indicator here. This is single span. This is a lagging indicator. If you see this little green line, and once this little green line starts touching the price, that means that the market is in consolidation mode. So guys, either the market is going up, or it's going sideways, or it's going down. It's easy as that. When we pull back on the monthly, and again, this is not financial advice, but when we pull back on the monthly, you see just how far down it went. And this is basically in bearish territory. It's not 100% in bearish territory because it hasn't fallen on the monthly. It hasn't fallen below this single span. Excuse me, single span B, which is a 52 moving day average in the future. And once it crosses here, then we're definitely in bearish territory. But we have a flat signal here, flat signal here. We have the single span here touching the price on a monthly. So on the monthly, if you are a long-term, sort of like like the 401ks and the IRAs go by the monthly. So it's flat. So you're flatlining. You're flatlining here. On the 4-hour, yeah, not looking good. It's saying stay away. Here is saying stay the fuck away. We got a flat here. We have a little bit of up here. Looks like we're about to have a TK crossover here. So once it starts acting up in the lower time frame, on the hour time frame, I guess at least for the swing traders, that means get out. Obviously, if you're trading in a little bit of lower time frames, like the day traders are trading in the 1 minute, 3 minute. However, once you go to the 15-minute chart, Ichimoku is not really reliable. These indicators are not really reliable, so you have to take it off, guys. Again, full disclosure, I do swing trade, but at the moment I'm not in these markets. Once Charles Nanner told us to get out the markets, we got out the markets. Let's swing over to Charles Nanner and see if we can get like a little short quote from Charles Nanner, because he really Charles Nanner. Let's see if we can get a quote from Charles Nanner. Okay, that's a little too long. Okay, so let's just see here what Nanner has to say really quick. Hopefully you guys can hear this.
Well, we're definitely going into a serious recession. That's one of the reasons why the bond markets are having this rally. A higher 100% correlation with the cycle, and it shows that we're going to have lower inflation into February. That's why everybody starts to be positive. It's just a cycle, as people didn't know that the inflation would go up. The cycle says it's going up. Now it says the cycle is going down. And in the first quarter next year, it's going much higher than inflation. So we have to anticipate that. We have to be ready for another move up in inflation. And consumers should prepare themselves, think how to survive this. I have friends in Holland. Holland has an inflation of 17%.
Damn.
And they sent me pictures in blankets, because they turned off the friends that had a monthly a bill of $360 with 5 kids, and now it's almost 1,000. So it's serious.
Wow, you heard that guy from the genius himself, Charles Nanner. He is one of the most beloved economists. Really, he's a cyclist. And Nanner is saying that we're going into a recession, that for the short term, there will be lower inflation. So inflation will be coming down lower. However, for the long term, that we'll be dealing with inflation. And guys, if you follow my work, that there is it's not really talked about. I don't really hear it talked about on a lot of these podcast channels. But guys, there is a correlation between it's obvious. There's a correlation between crime and inflation. When prices go up, we'll be having more crime. And so that ties into what I said in the beginning of the podcast with Joe Skolson. What he's talking about is that we're going to be experiencing a lot of volatility in densely populated areas. As more and more people get poor and they can't handle the consumer prices, you're going to see more crime. Nana is talking about, again, low inflation for the short term, but high inflation long term. And one way to hedge against that is you're going to find that a lot of people are going to run into gold and silver. Again, this is not financial advice, but you're going to see that right now in the retail sector, the retail people are, the retail people are getting into gold and silver, but the not necessarily the institutional investors, less than 1%. Egon von Grers has informed us and educated us that less than 1% of the institutional financial institutions are invested into gold and silver. So we see the retail, the mom and pops, basically the retail investors, because we're ahead, basically we're ahead of the curve. You know, Nanner told us months. He must have told us at least a year ago to get out of the markets, and so we've been out of the markets. We sold all of our Roth IRAs, our 401ks. We sold all that. We got out of the stock market, and basically, you should be. You know, if you are in the stock market, you should be watching your stocks daily. And this market is really only for day traders. Again, Nana is talking about recession, that we're going into recession, low inflation short term, high inflation for the long term. But it's going to go back up, like he said. And then he said in one of those countries that it was 17% inflation. So basically, what's this guy, Rick Rule? If you guys are familiar with the work of Rick Rule says that we pay an option premium. So your money is held in your bank account. However, the rate of inflation is at about 10%. So you're getting actual. So actually, there's actually a hole being burnt in your money because you have to get a yield or interest that's higher than 10% in order to keep up with the rate of inflation. So your money is being debased and it's also just being eroded. Your purchasing power is being eroded. So that's why a lot of people are going to start to get into gold and silver. Again, you got to have a little bit of it, but it's not the end all be all. And hopefully you guys are following me. It's your boy Jay. This is Digital Revolution Podcast. Seems as though I'm getting a little bit better at communicating. It's not easy communicating all these advanced concepts. I have a background in real estate. I am a licensed real estate person. I'm not a broker. I'm a licensed real estate person. And but the real estate is a whole nother thing. Not that it's a scam, but you know, a lot of real estate agents, they don't make money unless they sell what you got. You know, so a lot of real estate people are just gonna sell you anything. Right now, the interest rates on the mortgages are super high. It's really only certain demographic of people that can afford the mortgages. Before it was something like only 10% of the population can afford the mortgages. That making over $100,000 or more, that puts you in the top 10%. But not even they can afford the mortgages. Really, the nurses are affording the mortgages and getting the mortgages from the bank with a high interest rate. So kudos to the nurses. If you decided to go into nursing, then you know, God bless you, because guys and girls, if you're in nursing, you're doing good. But one of the solutions to the problems long term is that, yeah, 70% of our industry went over to China. So as we go through this transition period, in order to get the United States back, we have to bring some type of manufacturing. However, the baby boomers are retiring or they're dying out of the system. I hate to say that, but they're dying out of the system. And they're the ones that have the most purchasing power. Now, the millennials, guys, the millennials, they don't have any purchasing power. And guess what, guys? They don't want to work in a fucking factory. So trying to bring manufacturing back here, most of them, they would rather die than work in a factory. Okay. So I don't know. But let's let's get back to what we were saying. Maybe we can find some more quotes from Nanner here. I don't want to go into anything long with Nanner, but yeah, Nanner was saying that. Okay, so we covered McDonald's, we covered Nanner, Charles Nanner. Again, check out Charles. He is a beloved cyclist, and he's one of the best. And it always pays to listen to Charles Nanner, as they say. He is, as they say in the investment community, he is undervalued, where he has so much value to give and really helping people out in this tumultuous time. But okay, so we covered that. Um, we covered stocks. Let's just check a few more stocks here. Tesla, yeah, I'm not fucking with any of this. All of this is just propped up. We were talking about how we go in the lower time frames, the indicators start breaking down. I really check. Let's check those bonds real quick. Yeah, yeah, they fucked up. No bueno. Let's check the gold miners and let's pull back on a monthly chart to see what's going on there. Here you have just a huge consolidation. It has just been stuck in this price range. If you see here, from here to here, it has been ding, 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 just in and out of this price range. So yeah, but a lot of people are saying that they're going to go into these gold miners. I don't know. Again, this is not financial advice. Okay, so let's go to Peter Schiff. Guys, this is the Digital Revolution podcast. Guys, bear with me. I'm not your typical podcaster. I'm kind of new to podcasting, but if you like what I have, please like and subscribe, guys. I have to give you sort of like a warning. A lot of the topics that we deal with are super heavy. You might feel a little disturbed. However, sometimes we want to escape reality and be in escapism. But what we're going into, a lot of us are going to have no choice but to deal with the reality. So let's deal with it now. But let's go to Peter Schiff again, another beloved economist. Peter Schiff is the man. Hopefully, I can get my co-host on here and we can go over some Peter Schiff. But let's see what Peter has to say.
Was fighting inflation by raising interest rates. Now, raising interest rates only help reduce inflation to the extent that they change the spending and saving patterns. They need to be high enough to discourage consumption and borrowing to consume, and they need to encourage people to save. Now, that will only happen if the interest rates are significantly above the inflation rate. Otherwise, you're not going to get that effect or that result. The only thing that the rate hikes have accomplished, because they're not high enough to fight inflation, is that they are high enough to raise inflation. That part of the problem now is rising interest rates. Right? It's not part of the solution because they're not willing to raise them high enough. It's part of the problem. And what do I mean by that? Interest rates are prices, just like anything else. And if you're a business, you have prices that you pay. Let's call them costs. You got labor costs. You got raw material costs. You got rent, right? There's all these costs that you have to operate a business. Well, if you have debt, which most business.
Why settle for low yields when you can earn 9%?
Again, this is the Digital Revolution podcast, and we're just going over some of the grades. That's what I do here, guys. If you like this information, like and subscribe. We're kind of just breaking down what some of the grades have to say. We're going to be going over Mike Maloney. He just went over amazing podcast. But yeah, let's get deeper into it. Let's see what Uncle Peter has to say.
You know, thanks to the Fed, we have a lot of debt because rates were so low. But you're a business and you have debt, and now the interest rates go up. Because business debt isn't a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, right? That stuff matures every few years. And so now I'm a businessman and my debt service costs have gone way up. Well, that's the same as my labor costs going up or my raw material costs going up. How do I respond? How do I recoup those rising interest expenses? I raise my prices. So when the Fed raises interest rates, it puts pressure on businesses to raise their prices. The opposite of what it's trying to accomplish. Also with housing, rising interest rates make home ownership more expensive. They push up the cost of taking on a mortgage.
And you know what? A lot of mortgage fraud is going on, or maybe not now, but before the pandemic, a lot of mortgage fraud was going on. For instance, I don't think. Now, again, this is not financial advice. Please do not, always consult with an expert. I am no way an expert on economics. I do have a background in real estate. I am a licensed real estate person, but I'm currently not practicing real estate because real estate has its own issues. As you can see here, a lot of real estate agents are getting out of the business. Not to say that you can't make money, but where we're going with this, the millennials just can't afford it. Like Peter Schiff is saying. But yeah, let's go here.
It makes it easier for landlords to raise rents because it's harder for potential tenants to go out and buy something because it's too expensive with higher rates. So they have no choice but to rent, even if the rent goes up. Now, in an environment where interest rates are really low, well, there is a limit now to how high I can raise my rents because my tenants might be able to go out and buy and qualify for a low interest rate loan. But when they don't have that competition, I don't have to worry about my tenant getting a low interest rate loan because they're not available. Well, I have more room to jack up my rents. So that's a big part of consumer prices.
That's capitalism. And we talk about capitalism versus socialism. And well, if you are familiar with Noam Chomsky's work, he says that the end result of capitalism is slavery, and the end result of socialism is slavery. But if you follow the work of Doug Casey, he says that we don't necessarily live in a capitalist system; we live in a fascist system, and that this is really fascism. And we talk about fascism as being when government and the private sector and the corporations are in bed together. That's the definition of fascism.
And that's going up more. Also, rents, interest rates are part of all sorts of costs, because a lot of people were buying stuff over time, nothing down. I mean, think about all these cell phones. Every couple of years, people are going out there buying a new iPhone. They cost $1,200, $1,400. The reason they can buy them is because of the low interest rates, because the cellular providers, they just say, look, here, you can take the phone, no money down. We'll just charge you 10, 15 bucks a month extra on your bill. You can have a brand new iPhone. And so people do it. But where the cell phone companies, how are they getting the money to pay Apple? They're borrowing it really cheap. Well, if they can borrow the money really cheap, then they can't offer those special deals. So then people have to pay the higher price. They're not going to get a break with lower interest rates. And this is why raising interest rates is going to complicate the Fed's inflation fight, which is why I knew that it would have to concede, which is, in fact, what has already happened, right? Quantitative tightening is over. Quantitative easing has started, and it's not going to stop. Right? We see how long that happened, right? Because the Fed initially did quantitative.
Scary, guys. Once you really understand these economic concepts, it is fucking scary, because these have real world consequences. When they do QE, quantitative easing, which is another, fancy word for saying that they're just printing more fucking money. When they print more money, it causes the prices of everything to go up. It's not that the item, let's just say, for instance, it's not that these items are any more expensive. It's just that the money is going down. And when prices go up, we see there's a correlation with crime. And so that's not good.
And they got the balance sheet up to $4.5 trillion. Then they started quantitative tightening. And when it got a little bit below $4.5 trillion, they finally kind of reversed the process a little bit. And the next thing you knew, we were at $9 trillion, right? Once they go from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing, they don't go right back to quantitative tightening. They're at easing for a long time. I mean, think of how long QE lasted the last time, right? It went on forever before they tried to withdraw that liquidity. The problem is they withdraw the liquidity until the economy goes into convulsions, right? That's what happened in 2018 when the market started to implode. So the Fed went from quantitative tightening to quantitative.
My name is Jim Rickards. I'm a former advisor to the CIA.
Okay, so so Jim has been doing these commercials.
In a moment, you'll have my own evidence.
And
very few people have seen.
We went over this commercials, but we love Jim. We love Jim.
Well, as soon as the banks started to buckle, right, they started to see the symptoms, the withdrawal symptoms from the detox of the quantitative tightening. They went right back to quantitative easing. That's going to continue. But the problem with rising interest rates is the impact it has on the federal budget. One of the reasons that the budget deficits have not been larger, and they've been enormous. I mean, they've been record highs. But the main reason that they haven't been even bigger is because of the expense to pay the interest on the national debt. Okay. We have a $32 trillion or so national debt. I mean, they haven't raised the limit yet, but they will. But we have this.
Yeah, that's the same that we said in the last episode. Bill Halter says somewhere around $32 trillion in the United States alone. But there, however, is $320 trillion of global debt, and then there's $2 quadrillion of debt that you can't see, and derivative debts. The derivatives, the banks, they trade amongst themselves, so it's off the books of the banks, but you can't see it. However, at the end of the day, all these financial terms, whether it's collateralized loans obligation, or it's a derivative, or it's a credit default swap, all that shit is debt. It's all fucking debt at the end of the day. It's either a credit or it's a debt or it's real money, which is gold and silver. It's as simple as that, guys.
Huge debt. But the cost to the government of making the interest payments on that debt has been low, thanks to 0% interest rates. And so since the government has to borrow all the money to pay the interest, it's just part of the budget deficit, because it didn't have to borrow as much to pay, 25 basis points of interest, that meant that the budget deficits, because of low interest rates, were smaller. Now, the Fed is raising interest rates to fight the inflation that it created, and it's creating a huge problem for the government because now the interest expense is rising. And so now the deficits are exploding. Deficit spending is an engine of inflation because inevitably the bigger deficits get monetized by the central bank, which is exactly what is.
Well, listen, okay, so now this is going to get a little bit deeper into this. So the government has these deficits. Basically, they can't pay their bills anymore. They have Social Security, they got the welfare state, they have government pensions, they have the military. The government has all these bills they have to pay, but they cannot pay them. Now, some people say that a way to offset the deficits of the government is to depopulate, and that the pervasive sickness, which I'm not going to say because I don't really know what I can say and cannot say on this channel, but that basically the pervasive sickness, the sickness that we've been dealing with, was a way for the government to offset its deficits. When you have 7 million people that just all of a sudden die, and then you have other people that are dying from the jab, that is deflationary. The government doesn't have to pay out those Social Security liabilities. Therefore, it can balance its budget. So, guys, this is some freaky fucking shit. Once you really understand what's going on, how they are weaponizing the money and weaponizing the dollars and weaponizing the economy. And really, they all want us dead at the end of the day. And either they want us dead or in concentration camps, because guess what? They do make money off of us. They collateralize the fact that Americans get up every day and go to work. They collateralize off of that. And we're going to explore that more with Mike Maloney, who's going to get a little bit more into that. And guys, these are the greats. These are the heavy. Peter Schiff is an American legend. As far as in my household, he is an icon. Okay. Not these rappers, although I love rap. And maybe we'll get into rap another day, but not these celebrities. No, Peter Schiff. These guys are saying things that are really helping Americans to understand what's going on. But
going to happen. So because the Fed raised interest rates to fight the inflation it created, it's now going to have to create even more inflation to bail out the government, which now has to pay a much higher interest on its debt. So it can't win. That's why I've been saying there's no way out of this. Inflation is going to surge. Now, one of the things that I really wasn't thinking about initially was the impact that these lower interest rates were going to have, paradoxically, on reducing the CPI. Because when interest rates were held at zero for so long, even though the Fed was printing all this money, those 0% interest rates were helping to suppress the CPI. Now, a lot of people were saying, Peter Schiff, you said that these low interest rates were going to cause inflation, and it didn't happen. I didn't say that the low interest rates were going to cause inflation. I said the low interest rates were going to cause bubbles in the stock market, in the real estate market, in the bond market, and they did.
That's what I was just saying. That a lot of this shit you see in the stock market is just super bubbly. It's the stock market is still overvalued. Maybe when the S&P or as a matter of fact, the Dow Jones corrects itself, once we get a major correction in Dow Jones, I forget exactly where they say it would go, but like saying that the Dow Jones will fall almost to like $8,000 for one share of the Dow, that it's going to fall that far. And then that's when the true price discovery will happen. You got major investors like Stanley Druckenmiller that has openly said that he has stepped back from investing other people's money because there is no price discovery. When these markets are heavily manipulated, nobody knows the real price of anything. Everything is caught up in the matrix. Everything is smoke and fucking mirrors in this market, guys. I hope I'm getting that across, but let's finish up with Peter Schiff.
What I always said was going to cause the inflation was the inflation, which was the expansion of the money supply that was necessary to create those low interest rates. What?
It's going into another commercial. Again, so Peter Schiff is saying raising interest rates. When they raise the interest rates, it constricts borrowing because less people can afford the higher interest rates. So it kind of stops borrowing. Higher interest rates, for instance, you'll get higher interest rates on the mortgages. So yeah, let's get back to what Peter Schiff says. Sorry about that, guys. But
By which the Fed lowered interest rates. Well, it printed money. It did quantitative easing. Quantitative easing was inflation. Putting all that money into the economy was what I was concerned about. Now, what I didn't necessarily appreciate was the extent to which the initial decline in interest rates would bring down the CPI, making it harder for people to appreciate the inflation that the Fed had created. Because in the short run, paradoxically, the inflation that the Fed created helped to lower the CPI because it initially lowered interest rates. But that effect is now over, and we arrived at the long term because all the money that the Fed printed to bring interest rates down, that brought the CPI down, is now coming back to bite us, and it has pushed the inflation rate much higher. Now that that has happened, interest rates can't stay down. Interest rates have to rise now because inflation is so much higher. And those higher inflation rates are going to be built in the bond prices, which is why you're seeing now this increase in longer term interest rates relative to short term, which is now happening as the yield curve is steepening. It is going to get a lot steeper as the inflation psychology becomes entrenched and it becomes a reality where people recognize.
Guys, we have what Peter Schiff is saying, that and what Charles Nana just said, that we'll have short-term interest rates will go down, but they're going to go back up. With this inflation, it's going to eat away our country. It's going to eat away the morale of our country. People are going to be basically bankrupted and start defaulting. Already the car loans, people are defaulting on their car loans. They're getting evicted from their apartments because it's either they pay their rent or they get the food. A lot of people don't want to get the subsidy from the government, but it's forcing people to be consolidated into the government and into just a few of those globalists. Remember, we talked about just those core group of people that are controlling the planet, or at least controlling the G7 nations, whereas the BRIC nations are trying to get out of there. But we will very soon see if the BRIC nations is what it really says it is. But inflation is going to eat away this country. The average person cannot handle the higher consumer prices. They can't handle it now. So like that would be, you pay $8 now for a coffee, but in a few more years, you're going to be paying $40 for a coffee. Exactly.
That we have high inflation as far as the eye can see. And at this point, if the Fed starts cutting interest rates, it's not going to matter. The genie is all out of the bottle. If they cut rates now, it's not going to have the impact on consumer prices it had before because inflation is already 6%. And if they do that, the dollar is going to tank. No question about it. If they cut rates, and I think they've already stopped hiking.
And guys, if the dollar tanks, then what? Then guys, what the fuck are these prices? Somebody please explain to me. If the dollar is zero, a billion times zero is zero, like Lynette Zhang says, then that means that all of these markets are just smoke and mirrors. Because once you cash out your Dow Jones Industrial Average stock portfolio, or once you cash out your stock portfolio, you're cashing it out for dollars that are worth nothing, that are worth zero, to the zero bound. And well, you won't be able to buy anything, or your purchasing power will be less in the future, which you can buy with that money. Well, you essentially, like people like Clive Thomas is saying, is that you got to buy something now because it will be more expensive in the future. Guys, we can't handle those high interest rates. It's going to eat away this country. It's going to eat away the morale of this country, and it's all being done on purpose.
And that's even enough to tank the dollar. But when they cut rates, they're gonna drive a stake true the dollar's hard, but the dollar's going to tank. What's going to happen to oil prices and other commodity prices when the dollar tanks? They're going to shoot up. And so
Well, right now, looking at oil, West Texas Intermediate crude oil looks like it's trading at $80 a barrel, but they're saying that with the OPEC and the BRICS trying to get out of they're de-dollarizing, that they're going to be raising the price of oil, which is not good. Again, some more consumer prices going up, the commodities going up, and the average consumer cannot handle higher costs of oil, can't handle the higher cost of living in general, the average consumer. Remember, the average person in the United States is making somewhere around $50,000. If you make over $100,000, that puts you in the top 10%. Those are the ones that are eligible for the mortgages. However, moving forward, not even that top 10% will be eligible for the mortgage. So in the past, we saw a lot of mortgage fraud to get the homes, and even the mortgagees, the people that give out the mortgages, were helping with the fraud. Again, we learned as real estate agents that 40% of people in the US default on their mortgages. It's a little bit of a scam when you really think about it. So again, 40% of people default on their mortgages. As we get deeper into the recession, it's somewhere around 60 to 70, possibly even 80% of people will default on those mortgages. That's not even to mention commercial real estate, and how we're going to see major defaults in commercial real estate, because look at McDonald's, they're laying off workers. So they don't need that commercial real estate. So we're going to see small banks and even big banks be hit with major defaults on the commercial real estate. I know in New York City, there is 50% less occupied people in these buildings. It's 50% less. So yeah, again, a lot of this stuff is just crazy, crazy, crazy. Again, this is the Digital Revolution Podcast. It's your boy, Jay. I hope you guys are following me. If you like this information, please like and subscribe and get that information out there. We're just here to learn. We're trying to get a bird's eye view. As you see, I have the world in the back here. We're trying to get a bird's eye view of the situation that we're here. We are birthed into this world. You know, things come from the immaterial into the material. We're down on this plane in the material, and we're dealing with some heavy shit. Some people would even say that this densely populated frequency that we're in, called, you know, this world that we're in, the things that you can see, the low density vibration of the energy that we're in, some people consider this hell, that we're living in a hell. And I'm not here to say that it is or it isn't, but for a lot of people, this is hell. And for a lot of people, this will be hell. And a lot of us are stuck in the matrix. I mean, I just gonna say this, that I see a lot of people, again, we go back to, what is the United States' largest export? Our largest export is entertainment. The generations that are being brought up, this is why we have so many disparities in and that there's not enough lawyers, there's not enough doctors, there's not enough engineers, there's not enough people that really can really move the United States forward, because we have a whole generation of people, particularly the generations, the millennials, and the other generations that that were born a little bit later on. I mean, not later on, but the younger generations. They don't want to be engineers. They don't want to be doctors. They don't want to be nurses. They don't want to be home health aid attendants. They don't want to be miners. They don't want to be engineers that specialize in something. They want to be, or they have been brainwashed to think to be entertainers. They either want to be singers or dancers. So we live in a culture of perpetual narcissism, and United States is going to have its day, because we're going to have no choice but to wake up, and some of us may be thrown in, or have no choice but to do hard, heavy manual labor or heavy lifting jobs. For instance, 70% of our industrialization is in China. So when all is said and done, when the tribulation period happens, and then after we get out of the tribulation period, we deal with the climate change. At some point, we're going to have to bring industry back here. How that looks, I don't exactly know, but the areas for opportunity and growth is going to be, if you can grow something, guys. If you can grow something, you're going to be the millionaire in the future. It's not going to be these hedge funds, because once the dollar goes to zero, if you're a billionaire and you don't have any hard assets or any real skills, because the reset is going to have to be about real tangible skills. And again, I hope you guys follow me, and I hope this is making sense, because we're here to talk about some of the hard pressing issues that's going on in society, and maybe come up with some solutions. One of the solutions, again, let's go over some of the solutions. And again, like and subscribe to this channel and spread this information. Some of the solutions are, guys, is that we need transparency of the government. We need some way to have the government be accountable for the money that they're spending for taxing us. There cannot be no taxation without fair and equal representation. Therefore, if the government is taxing us, it's illegal what they're doing. It's illegal what the federal government is doing. You cannot print money out of thin air and then buy up the rest of the world on it. It doesn't work that way. You need something of value for something of value. And most of us is going to work and getting paid with worthless pieces of paper. Another area of opportunity is to grow something or to make something, so that when all is said and done, we're going to have, possibly when the tribulation period is over, we're going to have a boom in those sectors. So yeah, hope this message is getting across, guys. But let's go to something else. Oh, sorry, guys. Let's go to, what else can we get into today? Okay, so we did McDonald's, went over the stock market, went over the price of oil. It's about $80 a barrel right now, but with everything that's going on with the BRICS and then in Saudi Arabia trying to get out of dollars, we could see higher oil prices or just higher consumer prices in general, and that is going to cause a lot of uncertainty and volatility in the markets. A lot of people are going to end up being subsidized by the government, or basically the government's going to have to nationalize everything. The federal government and the Federal Reserve is going to have to step in and buy up everything. And once they buy up everything, we're going to be under dictates and mandates. They're consolidating their power. Let's go into Mike Maloney real quick.
Be summed up in just 6 letters. IOU. IOU. All banks, whether they are central banks or commercial banks, do not lend anything that already exists. Instead, they just imagine a number and then they lend it to you with interest. This whole thing gets even more insane.
The whole financial system is a scam. It's a scam. And so the fact that it's a scam, it creates all these artificial relationships, the relationships that we have with people on our jobs, the relationships that we have with people that we work with, the relationships that we have with people that we know. It creates tension. It creates artificial relationships because nothing is really real. Everything is about that core group of people, less than 300 people, consolidating all the power to them, and essentially bankrupting and collateralizing the rest of the world, and just bankrupting people in general. But Mike Maloney is another legend, guys. Check out Mike Maloney. This guy is a freaking legend. And this is what I'm here to support their work and to piggyback off of what they're saying. These guys are my teachers, guys, and I learn from these people. But let's continue on.
It truly is crazy, and it's evil. This is fundamentally an evil monetary system that benefits the few at the expense of the many. The following
Babylon
presentation is based on content from my new book, The Great Gold and Silver Rush of the 21st Century.
Guys, you got to support Mike Maloney. Go out and get his book, buy his book, because pretty soon when they shut down the internet, you know, they can change everything on these internets. They're not going to keep this information up there for future generations to have. So we need to get the actual hard copies of things, because for future generations, because mind you, they're going to be studying this in the past, but possibly that all of this won't be on the internet.
To read the free online chapters or order the book, please go to ggsr21.com. Thanks. Welcome to the Great Gold and Silver Rush of the 21st Century, Part 1, backed by the full faith and credit of you. So this is about how you have been monetized. You are what gives the purchasing power in currency. You're the reason that people have faith in it, and the reason we use it as a medium of exchange. It is said that fiat currencies are faith-based, that they only have purchasing power because you have faith in them. That because they purchased something yesterday, we all have faith that they'll purchase roughly the same amount tomorrow. And I actually hope that this book shakes your faith to its very foundation, because faith in fiat currency is akin to faith in forgery, fabrication, falsehood, and fraud.
And that's what that core group of people is doing. That's what they're pushing. And that makes everything, like, it makes all the relationships here on planet Earth, it makes them artificial in a sense. And I think, let me stop sharing real quick. Let me just give my little 2 cents here. I think that that's why we're seeing, I know, at least in my experience, I'm seeing like a breakdown of family. I'm seeing a breakdown of coworkers. I'm seeing a breakdown of society in general. They don't want the family to come together. They want to divide the family, especially divide the mothers from their daughters, or for the mothers from their children. And definitely taking the fathers out of the household. They're breaking up the institution of the family, which is the most essential institution for us as a human species, is the family. But they have totally broken that up, and it's being broken up for a lot of different reasons, for political reasons, for socioeconomic reasons. And again, but we have to do something about it. Definitely, we have to look at ourselves, and we have to try to be independent and become independent from that system. But let's continue on with Mike Maloney. Sorry, guys, if I'm
Said back in chapter 1, today, the vast majority of currency is created by just typing numbers into computers. So please ask yourself, how many numbers are there? What is the limit to currency creation? One of the key attributes of money is that it must be a store of value. You know, I was having this discussion with somebody recently, and I said, what are the attributes of money? And I was arguing that it had to store purchasing power. And this guy said, well, not necessarily. And so I went online and I just typed, attributes of money. And the very first thing is the Federal Reserve. And it listed the functions that money has to have to be called money. And the very first one was a store of value. It's the most important out of all of these. I mean, it also has to be a medium of exchange and a unit of account and such. But a store
and guess what, guys? It's not a store of value anymore. The only thing the money can do for you is just to pay your bills temporarily. You can't hold the money long term, because by the time you retire, the money that you have saved up, it won't be worth anything, if they even accept that. It may be something where it's Bitcoin, gold and silver, and some other kind of commodities that we'll be exchanging in the future. Who knows? Or it could be that once the reset happens, or once we go through this tribulation period, that not a private organization issues the money, but it would be the United States government itself, the United States Treasury, that issues the money. But let's continue on with one of the greats.
Is number one. And in chapter 1, I believe that I proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that no nation today uses real money. And I said, if you're talking with somebody and you tell them that national fiat currencies aren't money, and they say, oh, no, we use the euro or the British pound or the yen or the yuan, and our currency is money. Ask them, do you believe money is a store of value, that money should be a store of value? And if they say yes, then ask them, is there inflation? And if they say yes, then ask them, but aren't those two things mutually exclusive?
Yeah, most people are not going to wake up to this matrix, to this reality, until they see that their 401k is hit 50% and they have lost 50% of their net worth. Then a lot of the middle class are going to wake up. Until then, it's going to be people on the marginalized people, or people on the periphery of society. But slowly but surely, the sleeping giant is waking up. The average person, they may not believe in all the conspiracy theories, but the average person will see higher consumer prices. They'll notice that they're paying more. They have to come out of their pocket, and they'll see that their 401ks and IRAs are being hit. But let's continue on. Again, this is the Digital Revolution Podcast. This is your boy, Jay. Please like and subscribe, and we're just going over all the greats. These are the great American people, guys, great Americans.
And if there is inflation, that means that the currency is losing purchasing power. It isn't the stuff that's changing, it's the currency that's changing. It's losing value, and therefore it is not money. So real money does not require faith. The purchasing power of an ounce of gold is simply the market placing a value on the rarity, the time, and the effort that's required to produce it, which is equal to the time and effort that you must put in working to acquire it, which is also equal to the value of the things that you can buy with it. In other words,
so something for something, guys, exchanging something for something. But yeah, so this is Mike Maloney. I'm not going to go over the full interview. I kind of want to make this short because the last one I did was pretty long. I don't know if you guys would like me to do long or short, but I'm going to try to mix it up and see what I could do. This one is this one is going to be rather long. But again, if you guys want to check out Mike Maloney, check out this interview. You have been monetized. It's fundamentally evil monetary system. Mike Maloney, guys, please check out this. Here, let's like this guy. He's a great American. He's one of the greats. So yeah, we covered the interest rates. We covered the S&P 500. We're going to go over usawatchdog.com. Another one of the great pioneers in journalism, one of the foremost independent news media outlets, I think, bar none. Yeah, let's go over USA. This is usawatchdog.com. Guys, if you don't know about usawatchdog.com with Greg Hunter, this guy is the cream of the crop. This guy is the best independent journalist ever. I am just blown away with some of the information that he has, but just like him, some of the stuff is very hard to swallow. Sometimes the truth is a hard pill to swallow, and some of the stuff that he reports on is disturbing. I mean, before we go into this one, but let's just see some of the stuff that he has here. Everything's about to blow up as God destroys evil. Trump indicted. Okay, we went over that. We were going to go over this one, ignoring CV-19 bioweapons death, radioactive Ukraine. Yeah, so he gets into the, the pervasive sickness and the jab, if you will. Medical, financial, political war, disasters getting worse. Yeah, guys, this shit is getting real, guys. This is some really heavy shit. This right here is very interesting before we go into it. This is an expert. What's her name? Karen Kingston is a biotech analyst and former Pfizer employee who understands complicated medical and biological contracts. Kingston has been doing a deep dive into the contract President Trump signed with Pfizer for their version of the CV-19 vax. Guys, check this shit out. This is a wealth of information. Pfizer says it produced 60% of the 13 billion injections worldwide. It produced 63% of the 13 billion injections worldwide. It was something like 73% of the population got the jab, but possibly what they're saying, what they're reporting on usawatchdog.com, which I tend to kind of lean in towards them because this is one of the top, if not the cream of the crop, the number one independent news journalist. I'm not saying there's plenty of other independent news journalists, but nobody can touch Greg Hunter. It's just like how they have rappers, like I kind of equate it to rappers, like nobody can touch the Notorious B.I.G. Nobody can touch Little Kim. Nobody can touch DMX. In terms of rapping, but in terms of independent news journalists, nobody can touch Greg Hunter. Nobody can touch Peter Schiff. Nobody can touch Catherine Austin Fitts. Nobody can touch Danielle DiMartino Booth. And nobody can touch Jim Rickers. And nobody can touch Mike Maloney. Nobody can touch them. But yeah, Pfizer says it produced 63% of the 13 million injections worldwide. Kingston explains, unlike any other contract I've ever read before, the contract says right up front, the president said that they had produced a safe and effective vaccine, and they would have to promise it would protect against SARS-CoV-2 and infections and all its variants. Yeah, here the bioweapon vaccines research that has been under development for a couple of decades. Even Bobby Kennedy said that last 20 years of Fauci. Okay, guys, you guys can go check this out. But I'm going to give you just a little bit of taste of usawatchdog.com. If you haven't done so, you have to Google him because Greg was taken off YouTube for talking about the jabs and being anti-jabs. I don't know exactly what you can and cannot say here, but we're kind of just rewording it right now. But there's definitely a lot of great information in it. There's like things that make it go, heavy hitting. But let's just see a little bit what this guy has to say here.
Can drinking water before bed burn 46 pounds?
And then we're going to
in 2
wrap it up
weeks
on that.
If you are struggling to lose.
I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to usawatchdog.com. This broadcast is brought to you by the Satellite Phone Store and Asking the Big is trying to find a satellite. It's Steve Quayle. Steve Quayle, thanks for joining us today on usawatchdog.com.
Well, Greg, thank you for having me on. And this is probably one of the most important shows we could be doing Because when we used to do shows about the advanced meltdown of this, World War III in the future, nothing's in the future. It's my opinion that we are living in the end of days, not the end of the world, and we're living in the most biblically accurate times as declared by the prophets in the Old Testament, as declared by Jesus Christ.
Kind of like how I've been saying, the prophecies, not only are the prophecies lining up, not only is the intuition lining up with the prophecies, not only is the cycles adding up with the prophecies, but let's see what Steve Quell has to say.
Self and as detailed in the book of Revelation. So we're watching right now, Greg, in my opinion, and I think the world's situations are demonstrating that everything people used to put their trust in and faith in this system, in this, in that, it's collapsing around us. And what's so telling and compelling is the situation. There's a proverb that says, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? We're watching the foundational biggest banks in history, especially Credit Suisse, as well as others that are going to be absolutely worthless. And as they crash, they take down the whole system. And that's why Western banking is under attack. The Saudis and everybody of consequential financial assets are pulling out of the Western banking system.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pulling out of the Western banking system, both in Great Britain, the United States. Obviously, they've already pulled out of Switzerland. And
the G7 nations.
Switzerland, when they went along, they abandoned their bank neutrality. They turned on Russia with the most sanctimonious sanctions. Basically,
Awful. Go ahead.
The Swiss banks, and I'm telling you this, I'm on record, I'll stand by it. Swiss banking is dead forever based on what they did when they disassociated themselves from their bank secrecy. So, Greg,
well, you know that Switzerland is where they're really running everything from. That's where the elites are. If I could just pull up a map here, see if we can get into this map here. We can go to Switzerland. You can't really see it there. But yeah, essentially they're running everything from Switzerland. It's like it might be right there. The Bank of International Settlements is in Switzerland. All those banks are in Switzerland. Credit Suisse, UBS. Let me see something real quick before we go into this, because we're about to end this podcast, but just give me one moment here. Guys, bear with me. It's your boy Jay. This is the Digital Revolution podcast. The revolution has started, guys. Let me see if I could pull up a map of Switzerland. Okay, hopefully you guys can see this. Hopefully this is still recording. If you guys have any questions, please put it in the comment and I'll answer all your questions. I'll answer anything that I can. But again, we were watching USAWatchdog.com, which I believe is the #1 independent news journalist, bar none. He is the cream of the crop. He is the best of the best, the gold standard for journalism. And this information needs to get out there. But Switzerland is where the elite are. This is where the World Economic Forum is. This is where all those top banks are. And this is where a lot of the gold is held here in Switzerland. If you can see here, Switzerland here. So a lot of the elite live here in Switzerland. They also live in the south of France. Here we have Rome. A lot of the Illuminati families, they established the first banks here in Rome. Sorry to digress. We're going to get back to Steve Quell, but some of the first banks were established here in Rome. The Illuminati families come from Medo-Persia. They were Medo-Persian, and they fought the Greeks, and they created the Etruscan Empire, collapsed that, and then they formed Italy. And they formed some of the first banks in Italy, and they also formed the Vatican. And they were fighting to get their cousins to be popes and emperors in the Vatican. So again, the Illuminati is coming from Medo-Persia, from the Medes. such as the Medici family. You have the 13 Illuminati families, but they came here exactly. Well, in the 12th century, they came to Switzerland, and then eventually they came here to France. So they established themselves in Switzerland first, and then they came to France, these Illuminati families. You have the 13 Illuminati families, and the Rothschild is one of them. However, the Rothschild is way, way below them. The top Illuminati family is called the Farnese family. You have the Farnese family, you have the Orsini family, and according to legend, Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet was written about these families because they were all infighting. They were all fighting each other so that their uncles and cousins can be the Pope. And so eventually they had to stop fighting and they had to intermarry to consolidate all their power. And so they have been in power since forever. Some say since Jesus was around. But again, I digress. But again, we're talking about Switzerland, and you'll notice that a lot of things hinge on Switzerland, that the home base of the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab is here in Switzerland. This land is very, very important historically. We need to study this land, and I might be doing some podcasts on the 13 Illuminati families and where they come from and exactly who they are. But they definitely established here and in the south of France. And where the rest of them are, I'm not exactly sure, but they are definitely scattered amongst us. But Switzerland is their home base. So again, I digress. Let's go to Stephen Quill, and then we'll end it on that. Guys, if you have stayed this far, please like and subscribe if you like this information. And God be with us all. But let's hear what Steve Quill has to say.
World War III, literally, we're at the time where we have made the state in the West, we're going to ship depleted uranium into the battlefield. Russia just announced again today, multiple times, multiple spokespeople, that they will consider that the use of radiological dirty bombs, and they will respond with their nuclear arsenal.
This is, I found out also, this is Saturday, so we found out last week that that Credit Suisse, that deal is with Swiss National Bank. They're out. They're no. They don't want to do it. I mean, that was supposed to save the banking world. Nope. Do you have some contacts with what's going on in Switzerland with this bank? I know you do, and you can't name them because they get fired or they get persecuted. But what's going on with the whole Credit Suisse deal in the Swiss National Bank?
Well, first of all, let's start out with when Switzerland made the most tragic mistake in stealing, and that's what it was, the Russian billionaires' assets, freezing Russian state funds. And I'm on record. Look, I believe the scripture that you can't sanctify stealing other people's stuff. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife or anything that is thy neighbor's. And what Russia has is a memory of the Western banks destroying Tsar Nicholas's entire kingdom by the Western banks plundering Russia. That's exactly what President Putin.
Because again, as we discussed in this podcast, guys, the G7 central banks want to overtake this landmass. They want Russia. But if they assassinate Putin, the people that come after Putin, they don't give a fuck. They will end the world. They will fucking end the world. And it makes you think that the people that are running everything, that core group of people, they're either aliens or they're just pathological psychopaths, or they know something that we don't know. And that could have something to do, as I've been saying throughout all these podcasts, that could have something to do with the destabilization of planet Earth, the habitability of Earth, that in the future, Earth may not be habitable for everybody, or there may be issues with the food crops. And so Russia, look at that landmass. Look at how green that is. They say that this area here in Canada will feed the world, that this landmass here in South Africa will feed the world, and that possibly Russia will be feeding the world, or at least have a lot of the resources that the world would need in the future, as a lot of these countries either go underwater, or they just cannot grow crops there anymore, or that the life there just becomes uninhabitable. But guys, let's get back. Guys, a lot of this stuff is so deep, and you just got to go through it. You just got to go through the fire. So, let's just go back.
Medvedev has been saying, all of the people that know the history of Russia, they see, and
they've been fighting this since the 12th century. They've been trying to do this since the 12th century.
Already talked about it. They know that the West has already partitioned off and sold off Russian assets. They haven't done it in fact, but that's what they're going to do. Russia says, you guys are all, the West is an existential threat to our existence. Russia and China, as you know, on Thursday, decided that they are going to go ahead and they are going to basically come into agreement. They're going to settle their oil trades in yuan. They're going to settle their financial trades in the gold-backed ruble. By the way, I've been a gold.
And that's the policies of this administration, guys. That's the policies of this administration. And that is our foreign relationships. At least with Trump, we wouldn't, most likely, I cannot say this 100% sure, but at least with Trump, we would not be having these issues with Russia and the talks of nuclear war. We're already in World War III, guys.
For 40 years, I believe when President Putin put a floor of $32, back up. When he put the floor on gold at $50 per gram, he put a floor on gold at $1,600 per ounce. As you know, Greg, gold on Thursday hit $2,005 an ounce. It went over it was hovering around 1980, then down to $1,920 per ounce. But what people need to understand, he introduced a just measure. And that's what I think people don't understand. T-bills, T-bonds, T-notes, everybody said, T-off. We're not buying any of that stuff anymore. And I've been told that the official discount rate on that stuff when China off $230 billion, I think Wednesday or Thursday, is 15 cents on the dollar. 15 cents on the dollar. That's an 85 point devaluation. And it's interesting because in the book of Revelation, it talks about Mystery Babylon. I believe the United States is Mystery Babylon, and no nation buys her goods any longer. Well, obviously, we have to.
Guys, we don't make anything. We're importing Kanye West and Kim Kardashian and these watered down celebrities. But as we discussed, a lot of people is not fucking with these celebrities anymore because who really owns them? It's the G7 banks that own these celebrities. They're owned by the hedge funds, or more so, they're owned by the big private shadowy banks, like BlackRock and Vanguard, owning these celebrities. Because who makes the movies? The banks.
To put into perspective, this is the nation that, number one, declared war on God, the Democrats and the spineless Republicans, but more importantly is embracing Satanism, is embracing witchcraft, it's embracing LGBTQXYZ, it's embracing everything. Now, let me ask you this, Greg. As Christian, President Putin is saying you need Western Christianity. You need the family structure. You don't sexually mutilate kids, and we will.
Guys, I was just saying that they want to break apart the family. Now, I don't necessarily get into the LGBT community because I think that a certain segment of the population, particularly the far right or the right wing, they're kind of weaponizing LGBT community. This is a community for everybody, and we should have open and honest discussions. We should not point fingers and say, oh, this or that person, because everybody wants to live their lives. As long as you're living your life lawfully, you're not hurting anybody, you're not hurting children, you should be fine. But in some instances, guys, let me just say this about the LGBT community. In some instances, guys, let me just stop this real quick because I have to be careful what I say because I have love for everybody. We love all of our LGBT community brothers and sisters. We love everybody in this community. Nobody should be feel threatened or feel any less than that's for everybody. We accept everybody here, Christians, Muslim, Buddhists, atheists, existentialists, all are welcome here. I believe in God. And I respect what other people believe. However, we're not going to weaponize LGBT community. But however, with that being said, the state be doing some crazy fucked up shit with the LGBT community. Okay, let's take for instance New York City, right? New York City is a socialist state, right? Do you know that if you go see a psychiatrist, right? They have these clinics, right? In the state of New York. You can go to this clinic and the clinician will diagnose you as having a personality disorder. And therefore, now that you have a disorder, the state will pay for your blockers to turn you into a man or a woman, because when you are LGBT or not LGBT, when you are identify as trans, you have to go through a transitional phase. You have to either get a shot monthly or you have to take a pill monthly. The pill, if you're a man, the pill effeminizes you. It gives you breasts. It turns you feminine. If you are a woman turning into a man, it does the reverse. It turns you into a man. It gives you a mustache. However, what a lot of Republicans and what a lot of conservatives push back on them, once they understand this, it's like, yeah, stop fucking with the community. So again, so not the LGBT, but the trans person, they get diagnosed as having a personality disorder, and therefore the state and the socialized state as New York City, they deem them as having a disorder. So therefore now all their medical procedures, such as their effeminization procedures, it gets covered by Medicaid. So in certain instances, you have a lot of trans women, particularly trans women, meaning men turning into women. You have a lot of them just popping up. You have a lot of them just popping up, and a lot of them are popping up because they're funded by the state, guys. They're being funded by the state. And that's why a lot of Republicans and people don't fuck with it. And they're like, fuck this. You're taking our tax. Not only are you scamming us, not only are those core group of elite people scamming us, but you got some weird fetish with men turning into women. And I don't want to go too deep on this because again, I love I love all people. We love our trans brothers and sisters out there. And this does not apply to all of them, but there's just people that one day they wake up and say, you know, I think I want to be a woman, or I think I want to be a man. And guess what? In the state of New York City, which is heavily socialized, heavily corrupt, the state will pay for everything. In some instances, they will pay for your feminization. They'll pay to get your this removed. They'll pay for you to be feminized. They'll pay for your breasts. They'll pay for your medication daily because it is now considered medically necessary. However, how do they pay for that? They pay for it with taxpayers' money. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that that is going on. So I think that we love everybody and we want everybody to be themselves. But once you understand that in some instances, the state is proliferating this, and in a sense, it's depopulation, because now you have, on average, guys, follow me on this. Please follow me on this. And I'm not judging anybody. I love everybody, gay, straight, Indian, Russian, Ukrainian. We love all people, but we just got to understand what's really going on. So in a lot of instances, the state is funding for these transitions. It's coming out of your tax-paying money. And so on average, there are more women that are born than men. So if you live in a state of New York City, well, just anywhere, there's more women that are born than men. You throw that into the mix, men that are transitioning to women, you will find that is kind of breaking up the family. And you got a lot of these men that they fetishize trans women. And if you think about it like this, a lot of these men, they fetishize the trans woman, and they like to have raw sex with trans women, and they like to come inside of them, and they like to fetishize them, and they can do things with trans women that they can't do with a regular woman. A regular woman is not going to let you, excuse my language, I'm getting a little too graphic, but a regular woman is not going to let you ejaculate inside of her and you can have a baby. And having a baby now is really expensive. So you will see that one way that they're breaking up the family is to create these trans women and get the straight men to be attracted and to be into the trans woman and to make it accessible. By no means am I judging the trans woman. You got to live your life. But but I'm trying to explain that the state is getting involved in this and is destabilizing. It's turning those men for the trans woman. Not that there's anything wrong with that. However, but if you're being manipulated, if you're under some kind of a mind control program and you're being co-opted into that, and you're fetishizing that, because again, these straight men that are with these trans women, they can do things with these trans women they can't do with a regular biological woman. They can't, in a biological woman, like, fuck out of here. I'm not gonna fucking do that. You fucking crazy. You're not gonna come inside of me. But a lot of these guys, they're into that, guys. They're into that. And I'm not judging anybody if that's what you're into. I'm just exposing. Maybe you never even heard this before. I'm just telling you what it is. and how it's getting down in these socialist states. And most likely it's probably like that in California. And that's why we see a proliferation of trans people. By no means am I judging them. You know, you have to live your life. But I think that to look at both sides of the picture, yeah, you got these trans people that they want to live their life, but you have a majority of them that people just wake up and they say, hey, I want to be a woman, and the state is going to fund it and it's going to come out of the taxpayer money. It don't work like that, guys. But again, this is the digital revolution podcast. It's your boy Jay. Guys, we're not here to judge or point fingers. We love everybody. We love all people, LGBT community, gay, straight. We love everybody. No way do we want to exclude anybody. We want to spread love on this planet. But we need to understand what's going on, guys. But let's go back to Stephen Quell, and then we'll kind of end it on this.
Wow. The entire deranged LGBTQXYZ, I'm just throwing those in XYZ in case there's something I don't know about that's coming along.
Right.
And so that is a heinous thing to the Luciferian globalists that are represented by Klaus Schwab and Yuval Harari and the others. Bill Gates, absolutely, he's talking about another pandemic. And people, I'm telling you, please, everybody who sees this podcast, I'm pleading with you, don't settle for a false narrative.
If they throw out another pandemic, guys, that's it. We're going on lockdown. You won't be able to come out of your apartment. Everything will be QR codes. Your food will be delivered to you. You will be controlled by the state. It could very well be that you get sick and that you have no choice but to stay in lockdown. But if there's another lockdown, guys, it's going to be mass rioting, mass social unrest, the society is going to collapse. But as society is collapsing, sorry again to derail, but let me just go on this. And guys, if you follow me here, please follow me on this. If you like this, like and subscribe. If you like the information that we're sharing here, and hopefully this information is getting across to you. But they were using China as to beta test for the viruses, but really they use Africa to beta test for viruses. So whenever those elite people want to test out viruses, that's why you always hear, oh, this happened in Africa or that happened in Africa. It's the elite going to those poor people, those indigenous poor people in those countries under the guise of vaccinating them, that you see that they're beta testing. So they're beta testing for viruses in Africa, and then they were beta testing in China. So the cerveza sickness was one big beta test to see how the world was going to react. So they have stuff, they have stuff in their underground labs and stuff that they've been working on that can certainly kill off the whole entire population, and they'll be in an underground bunkers, and they probably have the vaccines for it. But they use it was Sierra Leone that they were Sierra Leone here that they were beta testing for the cerveza sickness. The corporations, when they want to test out their viruses, they'll test it out here. That's why you always see it in Africa first. And some people will even say that AIDS was the first virus that they created, and the cerveza sickness is sort of like AIDS. It's a combination of AIDS, and it's a chimera, and it has gain of function. And again, I don't know what I can say and what I cannot say on this channel, but it definitely, I don't want to say definitely, but it certainly is tied into the pharmaceutical industrial complex and the G7 nations. And again, those elite people that they have underground bunkers all over the world. It's sort of just like Resident Evil. That's why I did a podcast on Resident Evil. But again, they beta test in Africa. That's why you hear all this stuff in Africa.
Science and the Bravo Sierra that wants you to cooperate in your own death.
You are our gold dealer, and gold is, I mean, listen, this isn't just, I would like to buy me a silver eagle at Bob's coin store. This is big money fleeing paper currency. They're fleeing it all. They're fleeing the euro, they're fleeing the dollar, they're fleeing currency. And are we going to have, are we getting to the point of unobtainium in the gold market? You've been selling gold. This is one of the things you do. You're a gold seller for the last 40 years. Where are we at with how the systems, is the system going to hold together? When is gold going to become unobtainium where you won't be able to get it?
Well, really soon now. I've been at it for 40 years. For the last 3 months prior to March 1st, the gold business was pretty flat across the country. Right. There's plenty of inventory, very little interest.
Right, because according to Egon von Grez, less than 1% of the financial institutions are invested into gold and silver, particularly gold. Right now we're seeing the retail investors, really the ones that are buying up the gold. The institutional investors have yet to buy up the gold. I think once we see the 401ks and IRAs go down 50%, we might see a rush to gold, and we're going to see those institutional investors rushing into gold, which therefore is going to push up the price of gold. Again, this is the Digital Revolution Podcast. It's your boy Jay. Hope you guys are following along with me. We're just reviewing an episode here on USAWatchdog.com with Steve Quayle.
Very little
Another
buying.
great.
As of Thursday, when I check my sources, I check sources overseas. Like, I don't ever sleep, and thank God, at least I get a couple hours, and that's not an exaggeration. But for instance, gold right now, this just happens to be a 1 ounce gold ingot, Royal Canadian Mint. Right now, it's 4 weeks back order. Canadian Maple Leafs, U.S. Gold Eagles. And what's interesting, these are on back order. Canadian silver, U.S. silver. And, you know, we were talking, Greg, right now, a U.S. silver eagle is at least almost getting close to $18 over spot. And this is what I don't think people understand. They will, at some time, the major mints refuse to take U.S. dollars for their product. And so you talk about
just saying that. I said that in the other podcast, we're going to have an issue when these bullion dealers no longer want to trade in dollars. And let me see if I can just pull it up real quick. I can find it. Yeah. So here's SD Bullion. No way do I make a profit from this. This is not me endorsing them by any means, but this is one of the more reputable bullion dealers. And he's saying, what Steve Quayle is saying is that there are back orders. So yeah, you can still get it, but it's becoming more harder to get. I mean, I showed you here that on the junk silver, you can't even find junk silver. When we go to the junk silver here, you can't even find it. Look at that. Well, wait a minute. Okay, so yeah, these you can still buy, but these are hot. This is a very high price here. $27,000, $13,000, $2,000 for junk silver. Damn it! I mean, if it's up there, you better get it now. But as we go further down, look at that. Notify me, notify me, notify me. So this is what Steve Quayle is saying, that there's back orders and you can't get it. It's unobtainium.
Let's just say this. I'd put the word hyper unobtainium. It's going to disappear. That's not a sale pitch. That's reality. So when I see 4 week backwards, you and I will be talking in this broadcast about how soon we think the whole U.S., Western Europe, NATO may go to war with Russia, because they're already announcing it. I think what's Clayton Morris on a Redacted News, excellent investigator, excellent broadcaster, and he's quoting the sources that are saying, oh yes, NATO's going to launch a preemptive attack against Russia. Now, I don't think Russian intelligence is stupid. They don't know what's going on. They don't know.
Well, NATO is part of the Illuminati. It is part of the New World Order, not the New World Order group, because allegedly the New World Order is going to be Russia and China, but NATO is part of that core group of people that is less than 300 people that rule the world, and NATO is its private army.
When is that going to happen, Steve?
The pilots flying the bombers, U.S. bombers.
Steve, when is that going to happen? When are they going to have this preemptive strike, according to your source?
According to the source that Clayton Morris is quoting, next 2 to 3 weeks. And America, Greg, has no civil defense.
Damn.
The only thing we seem to have is global offense. We have no civil defense. Russia can move the entire population of Moscow into their bunkers or subways. And here's something most people don't understand. Civil defense is a very important component in winning any nuclear war. Russia knows the benefit of it. They've done it since the Cold War, meaning being able to move their people into civil defense shelters. And I believe that this is getting close to the Ezekiel 38-39 war, where it even talks about radioactivity in the Bible, in the Old Testament, that people will have to go through and put little flags on piles of nuclear waste because it's still radioactive. So in 2 to 3 weeks, according to the Russians. Now, one more thing. The Russians announced the United States after 2 nuclear bombers, B-52 Stratofortresses, came within 10 miles of the Russian border that they are going to launch. This is real. The Russians announced that they're going to take 4 of their hypersonic missiles. Some people say 6. There's SLBM, submarine launched ballistic missiles. They're gonna have dummy warheads, and they're gonna launch them towards the West Coast to prove to the West they can take it out. And they're gonna do that as a demonstration. Now, here's the question. What happens, Greg, if they're not dummy warheads, or if somebody at Pentagon says, well, this is just a ruse, and we fire the real, and then there are 2 other Russian subs ready to just unload? And that's even prophecy. There's so much prophecy. I'm talking real prophecy. I'm not talking the YouTube prophets and the prophets that are just coming on as Johnny and Jilly after the fact. You know, so this is really tense.
Let's go back to 2 to 3 weeks. You were going to say before you said about the Russia launching these dummy warheads. 2 to 3 weeks, what?
That NATO, the word is out there from NATO sources that we, the West, is going to launch. That we're going to absolutely launch a nuclear response, or actually an attack on Russia.
Hold on, you froze there. Hold on.
Hey, listen,
wait, you froze.
Here's the deal.
Wait. Hold on, you froze. Going to launch a nuclear attack on Russia in 2 to 3 weeks. Finish that thought.
Well, I did. That's
well,
That's what. That's what I did finish it. That's what a person in NATO or close to NATO said, and that's what's being reported. Wow. And that's what was on Redacted News with Clayton Morris, and he actually quoted the source. And I'm just telling you point blank, that's in 2 to 3 weeks. Russia's going to, I would say, knowing that time frame, they will let's say this, they will demonstrate to the Western world that they're serious when their SLBM, submarine launched ballistic missiles, hypersonic, are launched, and in 90 seconds, I don't know where they're going to land the dummy warheads in the ocean, or they're going to land them in the deserts around Area 51 or Palmdale, wherever those dummy warheads hit. Then that's going to prove, and I hope it proves, you guys don't want to do it. So knowing if that 2 to 3 weeks, Greg, that's not my source, that's their source, but I was able to verify through my source that the dummy warheads is real, okay? So wow. If that's real, that really concerns me. So guess what? Russia can launch and take out the West Coast in 90 seconds with their hypersonic missiles. I am not a Russian agent. I have lived in the world of civil defense. I have lived in the world of missiles and counter missiles. Again, you cannot just dismiss the fact that we're launching our, quote, nuclear bombing runs. Obviously, we know the situation where we lost a Reaper, a drone, and all that. And then we're seeing our B-52s now escorted by a half a dozen different aircraft jet fighter escorts. And technically, that plan of battle is when you mean business. So that's a show of force. Are you kidding me? A show of force? We have watched the Russians and what they call their black hole submarines surface next to an aircraft carrier. This has really happened. And then submerge, and the aircraft carrier can't track them. They're that silent. And, that'd be pretty unnerving. You're sitting out on a naval aircraft carrier, and all of a sudden you see a Russian sub there, and again, we've watched, if you will, the entire communication, command control and communication, C3 taken down over the Ukraine. That was demonstrated.
Wow, guys, this is some heavy shit. Let me just recap what he's saying. So basically, we're in World War III. The G7 nations, particularly the banks, keep fucking with Russia. They're fucking with the Russians. U.S. sanctioning Russia, meaning that they are freezing their bank accounts. U.S. Steve Paul is saying that the United States or the West is an existential threat to Russia. Existential threat is like life itself. Nihilism is existential. Is existentialism. It's a whole nother thing. It's a philosophy. Stephen Quell is talking about how the West is tied up into this Satanism, and I was just discussing the weaponization of the LGBT community and how that all ties into it. That Bill Gates is quoting for another pandemic, and if we go into another pandemic, that's it. We're in the tribulation period. You can't find gold and silver; it's unobtainium. One of the particular things that Steve said that was really standing out for me was that Russia has a civil defense shelters and the U.S. doesn't have that. Basically, something to the effect that if there was a nuclear bomb that went off in Russia, that they're a little bit more prepared because they have civil defense shelters that they can easily, as Stephen was saying, they can easily get their population into these shelters, where in the US we don't have that. So it's looking like also he was saying that that there could be some kind of a test where Russia is going to launch a quote unquote test missile here in the United States. And that we should be looking out for, guys. I don't think I'm going to do the whole interview. I'm going to skip to maybe like the last part of it. But you guys can check out this interview on usawatchdog.com. This is bar none, some of the best. And let's just skip to the end.
You can start the countdown if you're still alive. The promise that everybody is given who turns to Jesus Christ is you don't have to fear death. And it is a fearful thing, but God is with those who believe him to deliver them. And everybody, listen, life is bigger than all of us. I think anybody that's listening to this podcast, any place in the world, life.
Yeah, but we're all just gonna kill ourselves. We're on this planet. We're all gonna annihilate ourselves for a few group of people that control everything, that are narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths. They'll end up killing the rest of the world. It is an existential threat. It is an existential threat, and this is why we need more people like usawatchdog.com. This is why we need more people like Steve Quell, even though you may not agree with him 100%. But yeah, let's continue on and end this and wrap this up.
Has overtaken you at some point in your life. Imagine a cascading tsunami of events that are beyond your control. And the neat thing about that is God is the ultimate control and the only one that can deliver us from overwhelming events. We have the history of the Old Testament, we have the history of the New Testament, and it's God who delivers his people. Greg, God bless you. God bless each and every one of you. And for all of you that say, I don't believe that God stuff, Quayle's always talking about Jesus stuff. Jesus is the only one that ever gave us the answers. The book of Revelation is the revelation that God gave to John the Apostle on the island of Patmos, the revelation of Jesus Christ, who's the only one worthy to open up the seven seals, who's the only one that could tell what had been hidden from mankind at the point of John the Revelator's banishment to the island of Patmos. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm putting my faith and trust in Jesus. And oh, by the way, the motto on "In God We Trust," that God is going to fail you. And if you never figured out who the pyramid or the eye on the top of the pyramid is, and why all of Hollywood's always showing you winks or one eyes, that's their pledge to Lucifer. So the real God is about to judge the false God.
And that's why a lot of us is not fucking with Hollywood like that. Would the real Jesus please stand up? Again, maybe you don't necessarily agree with everything Steve Quell has to say, but I do go to church. This is full disclosure. I do go to church. I don't go to church daily. I do Bible studies. This is not particularly a Christian show. I consider myself non-denominational, but I agree with a lot of stuff that Steve Quell is saying. And let's just wrap it up on that. And let me stop sharing the screen. Oh, damn, we went over a lot today. And sorry, guys, if this podcast went a little bit over. I hope you guys are following this. This is your boy, Jay. This is, I was going to say it's usawatchdog.com. But no, this is the Digital Revolution podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Again, like I said before I started this podcast, there's a lot of the stuff that we're dealing on this podcast is some heavy, heavy shit. I don't think I want to die as a result of just a group of people making decisions, and as a result of the core group of people trying to consolidate power and trying to basically overthrow the whole entire planet so that they can make the planet into their image. Because if we let that consolidation of power happen, we're going to end up with a dystopian future. It's already dystopian. However, the system has to collapse in order for something new to be rebuilt. I've been saying on this podcast for a lot of the episodes, that a lot of this stuff is congruent, and it's in alignment with a biblical prophecy. It's in alignment with the cycles. It's in alignment with what we all know intuitively. It's in alignment with the Holy Spirit. By no means am I excluding anybody or anything. All are welcome here. You know, you may not necessarily agree with everything Steve Paul has to say, but I think we can all agree that something is going on in this country. Some of the things that he talked about were so fucking deep, yo. In terms of, you know, Russia having a civil defense shelters, and the United States doesn't, and that NATO, in Russia, they're gonna be doing these bomb practices where Russia might be throwing a bomb. Not saying that they are, but it could be a practice bomb here in the United States, and that we're weak. Our military is weak. Our infrastructure is weak. Everything is weak. All these other countries are de-dollarizing. Certainly we need prayer. Certainly we need God. Certainly we need Jesus in these times. And let your faith be bigger than your fears. I hope everybody has a beautiful and blessed night, and stay tuned. And we're going to be in this together. And I just wish everybody peace and blessings out there in the world. And if you love somebody, love them harder. Try to accept and love people for who they are. And it's in these times that we need our friends, we need our families, we need to be together, because we're living in really uncertain times. And yeah, again, good night to everybody. I hope you have a blessed night, and we'll meet again on the other side.